Good. Sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in person and those joining us virtually. We welcome you to the release of the County Executive's FY23 operating budget. I would like to acknowledge our distinguished guest, Council President, Council Member Gabe Abernaz, Council Vice President, Council Member Evan Glass, and to all of our sitting council members. I would also like to acknowledge our state and federal delegations and
Recording in progress.
representatives from our outside agency partners. I would like to begin with a huge thank you to all Montgomery County departments, our outside agency partners, Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, and WSSC Water for all of their collaboration throughout development of the executive's recommended budget. Most of all, I would like to thank the team in OMB for their tenacity, professionalism, and the thoughtfulness that went into crafting this budget. Thank you to all of you. I'm going to now go to the second page for slide. The county has faced a number of challenges over the last couple of years. County residents have endured over 2 years of COVID-19. There have been multiple states of emergency declared in Maryland since March 2020, with over 165,000 cases of COVID in the county and nearly 2,000 lives lost. We saw increased needs for assistance. Our students experienced unprecedented levels of learning loss, particularly among lower income and minority students. Residents and businesses were further impacted by skilled labor shortages and supply chain disruptions that were coupled with high inflation and cost increases for goods and services. A growing economy and changes to the Maryland tax code following the enactment of the Federal Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 has a positive impact on the county's tax revenues, which are now outperforming estimates for FY21 and FY22. And FY23 tax revenues have been revised upward. For the first time, the county executive's recommended budget fully funds the county's 10% reserve policy goal. Racial equity and climate change lenses were applied to the proposals in this budget and are reflected in the recommendations put forth by the executive. There is a record amount of funding support for Montgomery County Public Schools and significant enhancements to programs in other county departments that support children. This budget fully funds Montgomery College's request, which also provides $3.3 million for operations of an East County Education Center. Record level funding is provided for climate change initiatives and affordable housing projects. This budget focuses on some of the lessons learned from responding to COVID-19. So there are significant investments for individuals and families to create food security and resiliency, financial and housing stability, and a more inclusive opportunity for prosperity. Additional investments in economic development and workforce training efforts are also in this budget. So I'm going to go to some of the successes here. A growing economy. Oh, I'm sorry. I lost my place. So additional investments in economic development are always, and workforce training are also in this budget. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce to all of you County Executive Mark Elrich.
So, I love technology. I'm actually excited to be here. This is the best budget that we've brought forward since I was county executive. And just to give you a perspective, when I came in my first year, my second day in office, I was told I had to take $45 million out of the budget that was going to end that June. That was starters. By the time we got ready to submit the budget in March, the state had said your budget estimates for revenues is $50 million too high. We had to cut another $50 million out of the budget. And that set a floor for the budget that we were going to present to the council. I remember in January of that year, sitting down with sheets and sheets of paper and deciding what to cut, to take the first 45 million out of the budget, and later we'd repeat that exercise. So as somebody who really believes in the social programs and the things this county does, it was a hard thing to do, to sit down and make those cuts to the budget. And over the last couple of years, while our budgets have been healthier, they've still not gone up by very much. We've been able to eke out about a 1% increase over the last 2 years in the budget. And it's obviously less than inflation, and inflation hasn't been much. But it also meant that anything we tried to do as enhancements ultimately meant we had to make some really hard choices. So we've had really hard budgets to deal with. And I've got to say, it's nice to have a budget that you can actually look at and tell people, imagine what you'd like this county to be. Think about the things you'd like to do that would make a difference, be able to listen to requests that came out of communities and say, we can find a way to do this. And this is what makes this such an exciting day, is to be in the situation where we can present that kind of budget. So I think we want to go to the next slide. This is the largest budget ever for Montgomery County Public Schools. And if it's approved at $2.9 billion, it's a $147.6 million increase from FY22. And it funds all the salaries, the benefits, and the programs that are in that budget. It's $117 million above the state's maintenance of effort requirement, and it funds 99% of the board's request. It includes $920,000 to open the new Kennedy High School Wellness Center, plus $3.7 million to expand mental health support and services at 10 of our highest needs high schools without a wellness center. It provides $630,000 to operate new linkages to learning sites at Gaithersburg Elementary School and Odessa Shannon Middle School. It has significant enhancements for out-of-school time programming, $330,000 for Kids Day Out, $104,000 for extended summer camp program, $668,000 for new Excel Beyond the Bell programs, and $350,000 for Rec Zone high school programs. It provides $20 million in resources for in FY23 for early care and education initiatives. Because of COVID, we're actually carrying over $9 million from last year because we weren't able to spend it. We didn't just say we're going to apply the $9 million and add another $1 million and make it 10. We're adding $11 million to that because we believe childcare is going to be coming back. We know the workforce is not going to be able to get back to work until their kids are taken care of. So it's important for us to put the money in there, and I'm just really happy that we're able to do this. And we increased the Kid Museum budget by $372,000 to a total budget of $1.6 million. And Kids Museum, which has a new location in Bethesda, plus its existing location, is going to provide just really amazing opportunities for kids to learn with technology. And I got to say, I would like to take a class in 3D printing there. They have some of the best toys anywhere. And so I'm really excited about that. Next one, support for individuals and families. You know, we know how challenging COVID has been for people in the county. That's why we've spent, millions, tens of millions of dollars on housing support. It's why we've given out millions of pounds of food and served millions of meals in Montgomery County because people, have really struggled over the past couple of years. And COVID has, I would say, been very cruel to a lot of people. We want to make sure that the recovery is top to bottom. And so even as we see recovery at some level in the business community, we still have communities that are suffering from deficits, and we need to make sure that we provide support for them. So this budget includes $5.6 million for service consolidation hubs. We're going to continue the hub model in Montgomery County. It includes $5.5 million in total programming across county government to support newly arriving immigrants and asylum-seeking children, adolescents, and families. It includes significant funding increases for the African American Health Program, $2.9 million, Latino Health Initiative, $2.2 million, and Asian American Health Initiative, $1.2 million. We have funding in for the second year of the Guaranteed Income Pilot Program, $2.6 million, We created an Office of Food System Resilience, enhanced grant funding for food assistance programs, and $4 million to continue direct food assistance to individuals and families in need. And it includes record funding to continue our effort to end homelessness, $2 million to provide 120 more rapid rehousing slots, $3 million more to increase the maximum rental assistance subsidy for more families in DHHS. And I just got to say how proud I am of our staff, David Dice, and getting that project done on Neville Street. We opened the shelter 2 weeks ago now that will house 200 people with surge capacity up to 290. This allows us to take people off the street. We are not going to continue Montgomery County's inhumane program of sleeping outdoors for most of the year. It always baffled me and baffled other people how the wealthiest county in the state has people sleeping outside. It is not a small thing to make the decision. We did that in the middle of COVID to say we're not going to do this anymore. And David did a remarkable job. They started on that building, got their permits in September. We opened a couple of weeks ago. They had to gut the entire building down to just the exterior walls. So it's a remarkable job, and I really want to thank them for doing that. Next slide. So over the last 3 years, Montgomery County has quickly become one of our nation's leading jurisdictions. Let me finish this one first before I go to climate. So other money that's in this budget, $600,000 provide year-round comprehensive health services to residents of the county's year-round homeless shelter. This is something that you couldn't do when people were on the street. It was hard to get in touch with a human being when you didn't know where you were going to find them. So now that we have people and we can bring them inside, we can actually bring services to them. And, you know, I've had enough experience with homeless people to know how many of them want to go back and get their houses and become productive members of society again. And, you know, there's an old folk song about there, but for fortune, go you or I. And that has a lot to do with homelessness. And it's really nice to see the supports that we're going to be able to put in there. We added $1 million to create staff and a new adult protective services team to investigate cases of abuse of older residents and vulnerable residents. We added $1.1 million to increase support for developmental disability supplement program for a total program budget of $20.3 million. We added $1.4 million increase to medical adult daycare supplement for a total program budget of $2.1 million. $1 million is in there for transition to the 988 three-digit dialing code that'll connect residents with suicide prevention and mental health crisis services, and $800,000 to continue to address the increased call volume that Everymind handles at the county's mental health hotline. Environmental sustainability and climate change. Our climate action plan is one of the most aggressive in the country, with the goal of reducing 100% of our greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. I was on the council when we passed the legislation. We passed legislation, but there was no plan in the legislation. We didn't know what we were going to do when we passed that legislation. We just knew we had to accomplish something big, and we were confident that we would be able to find the tools to do that. I've got to say that over, the 3 years, we have seen the situation evolve. There's better technologies. There have been some things that were exorbitantly expensive have begun to come down in price. And so the things we can do to address climate change continue to evolve, and they continue to evolve in our favor. We have building energy performance standards that have been recognized by the White House, and we're waiting for the council to take action on that. We're facing the urgency of climate change, and we know we have to do more. And I'm proud that this 23 recommended budget continues the effort to combat the crisis and establish Montgomery County as a regional, state, national, and global leader on this issue. You saw in our capital budget, we were making hundreds of millions of dollars investments in things that had climate impacts. We're following that up with money in our operating budget so we can actually implement it. If you're a building owner, you need to be able to come to somebody to tell you what you need to do. If we're going to compost food, we need to actually put a program in place to do that. So we're now providing the staffing support that's going to be necessary to actualize the money that we've put in our budgets to actually address climate change. And again, I want to thank, leadership in transportation for being on a path now to electrifying our bus fleets and to electrifying our vehicle fleets in Montgomery County. This is a record increase in programs to address climate change. $18.6 million goes to the Montgomery County Green Bank for loans that will be multiplied out in the community. There's a new $1 million program to provide incentives for residential, multifamily, and commercial buildings to replace fossil fuel equipment and appliances with electric ones. We have over $1 million to support the implementation of the Building Energy Performance Standards Program to reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions in public and private multifamily and commercial buildings. There's $675,000 to implement greenhouse gas reduction and adaptation measures in low-income housing, and $810,000 additional funding to improve the health of our urban forests, and $300,000 for a community justice academy for engagement with vulnerable and historically marginalized communities. Part of this effort is to create the citizen core that can go out and educate fellow citizens on what they need to do in order to help us fight climate change. The government cannot do this by itself. It is absolutely impossible. I can control my buildings. Our buildings are on a net zero timeline. New buildings will be constructed to net zero standards. I can change my bus fleet. I can change my car fleet, but everybody in this county's got to change their personal car fleet. It is time to move to electric. If $5 gas prices aren't enough to tell you that this current situation is unstable, think about the climate. Both your pocket and the climate will benefit from this. And I speak from experience because I made the transition to an electric vehicle in 2013, and I did it in the age of range anxiety, where I didn't get around the county and couldn't be sure that I'd get around the county in a day and not run out of electricity. I've been in turtle mode before. For those of you who have an early electric vehicle, you know what turtle mode is. A little turtle pops up on your screen. You go, I think it's like 10 miles an hour, and you got about a mile range left at that point to find a charging station. Cars today, 200 miles plus. It's a big change, and it's time for people to make the switch. We have $100,000 in incentives for individuals and businesses to electrify lawn care equipment. This is a major pollutant and a major noise irritant to many people in this county. Many folks would like us to go to eliminating the gas blowers, which we will be submitting legislation to do. Staffing to develop energy and green building codes and interface with the public about green building compliance, building electrification, and energy efficiency. Building electrification is going to be another key component of a transition to a greener economy. Natural gas, from where it starts in the ground to where it winds up going into a house, it leaks. It leaks majorly when it's produced, and it is one of the most significant greenhouse gas contributors. So we need to make that transition, and we're confident we will be able to do it. I was in the new Marriott building in Bethesda, an enormous building. Their heating and cooling was provided by electricity, not by natural gas. It is the way we can go, and other people are doing it, and it's time for us to continue that. We have $1.3 million in the budget to improve water quality protection fund for the Rainscapes program, stream restoration, maintenance, and inspection. And we have a senior engineer position in the Office of Agriculture for soil conservation, among other enhancements. We have $400,000 in the budget for a Save as You Throw pilot program in recycling and resource management to encourage residents to recycle more and generate less waste. You'll be seeing food composting. And again, I can tell you from experience, when I lived in Tacoma Park, I went on their food composting program there. I recycled because they have similar programs to Montgomery County. About all that's left in my trash bag is plastic film. The paper is recycled, the cans, bottles, most of the plastics are recycled. Most of my trash can is plastic film. That is a big deal, and it will not be long before plastic film recycling becomes as feasible as everything else. So I think between our actions and what is changing in the outside world, we're going to be in a lot better position to achieve our climate goals. And we're doing broad-scale climate communication campaigns, agrivoltaic technical assistance for agricultural land, and an agricultural business development specialist in the Office of Agriculture in Upper Montgomery County, where we're actually building a winery. I don't know how many of you know we're actually building a winery in Montgomery County, a county winery. We're trying to stimulate agriculture and winemaking in Montgomery County. And so we're building what's called the crush pad. And farmers will be able to bring their grapes to the crush pad, destem them, crush them, and process them in either stainless steel tanks or wooden barrels. And we're trying to stimulate the economy, because the more valuable the agricultural land is, the less pressure there is to turn it into rooftops. So we want a successful program. We want Montgomery County, the Montgomery College, to put an educational program in to support the wine industry in Montgomery County. Then when Dr. Pollard was here, she talked about that. It is something we can do that is going to, would have a significant impact, and would help us keep our green lands green. So that's another exciting thing we're doing. On transportation and transit, we restore the ride-on service and call and ride to pre-pandemic levels and maintain our bike share program. The regular fares on all ride-on routes would be half of what they were pre-pandemic. We're bringing it down to $1 a ride. $1 million to add capital and operating grants for programs for transportation services for nonprofit organizations, $550,000 for transportation accessibility initiatives, and we're aggressively moving forward with the transition to zero emission county fleet, providing $1.8 million for that task. And we're furthering funding for installation and support of the county's electric vehicle charging program. Part of those discussions involve Pepco and our ability to actually put charging stations on poles on the street, or next to poles on the street, where electricity obviously is plentiful and available. Affordable housing, a subject of much concern in the county. So we provide the highest level of funding in county history, nearly $140 million to expand the preservation and production of housing that is affordable, and especially for economically burdened residents. $57 million goes to the Montgomery Housing Initiative operating budget. $42.7 million goes for existing capital projects, and $40 million goes for new, naturally occurring affordable housing capital projects, which is focused on preservation of existing affordable housing. Park and Planning's own study predicts that the county would lose 11,000 affordable housing units over the next decade. To give you a snapshot of where Montgomery County sits right now, 24,000 households at $30,000 income, paying 60% of their income for housing. 23,000 households with incomes up to $50,000, between $30,000 and $50,000, also spending 50 to 60% of their incomes on housing. That's the crux. That is the biggest part of our problem, and the additional loss of 11,000 units would compact that problem. So we need programs that focus on the people who live here and providing them decent housing, and for making sure we don't lose more housing. We'll be introducing legislation that hopefully will stem the loss of the existing affordable housing and help us, in preserving that, move forward in the county toward these goals. But it is a serious challenge. The projections for growth in Montgomery County, when you hear people say 40,000 households, 75% of those households would require subsidized housing. 75% of 40,000 is 30,000 more households over the next 10 years, requiring subsidized housing on top of the other 47 and the 11,000 you might lose. Just give you a magnitude of the problem we face. This is why I'm focused on dealing with this end of the spectrum, because these are the people who will not be in this county. They will not be staffing our restaurants and our retail establishments. It's going to be hard to find labor. We need to make sure we protect as much of this housing stock and as many of these people as possible. The NOAA funds will preserve and create affordable housing properties in areas at risk of escalation. some might say gentrification, to higher market rents, including the Purple Line corridor and county transit corridors. It continues funding for building neighborhoods to call home and the Housing First program, and it sets aside $2 million from existing resources to explore, subject to the county's collective bargaining laws, a pilot program for down payment assistance to full-time career employees of Montgomery County and Montgomery County Public Schools to help make first-time home buying more affordable. Next. Economic development and workforce training and Montgomery College. I want to start by saying we wouldn't be doing this budget if we were not experiencing a robust economic revival here. These revenues did not come out of nowhere. There is no tax increase in this budget. There are no major cuts to any programs to fund the new stuff we're doing. This is money that's made possible by the growth that is occurring in Montgomery County. It is real, it is happening, it is building our tax base. I want to thank all the residents who supported the changes in the tax law in Montgomery County a couple of years ago. We were saddled with a system that actually limited our revenues. It didn't limit people's taxes. You could get your assessment go up and you could get your tax and you would pay more taxes, but it limited the revenues that the county could collect. We got rid of that program and we're seeing the benefits from that as well. This budget fully funds Montgomery College's budget request, including the $3.3 million to establish the college's East County Education Center. And I know that they're looking for property now to actually build a campus on. This is a major investment in the East County. I look forward to the ties that a school over there will be able to build with the high schools in the East County like they've been able to do in other parts of the county. This is important. We increased the spending for the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation by $1.2 million, $500,000 for Conference and Visitors Bureau, because they've been hit pretty hard by the lagging hotel tax revenue, and so we're helping supplement that. $350,000 for WorkSource Montgomery to assist refugee and immigrant adults with professional development and skills training. $317,000 in new funding for Workforce Montgomery to provide skills to those exiting the correctional system, and $60,000 in new WorkSource Montgomery funding for additional slots in the Summer Rise program. I want to call out WorkSource Montgomery as being a major success in Montgomery County. When I came into office, and I know that most of the council members shared the same view, WorkSource Montgomery was nothing less than terrible. And I remember a briefing when asked what they're doing on the east side of the county, they were able to say, well, we got 5 people jobs. 5 people. Today, they have a staff of 35 people. They're helping hundreds of people in Montgomery County, if not thousands. They understand the mission isn't just to find somebody a job, because if you find somebody a job only where they are, you're pretty much looking for many people at a minimum wage job. They're looking at how you upskill people so they can get the jobs of tomorrow. And I want to thank Montgomery College for your cooperation in very similar endeavors. We understand that it's not enough to have a minimum wage job. I'm a big believer in minimum wage. There's got to be a floor on how much misery people should experience. But ultimately, people have to get jobs above minimum wage. And we are preparing a future workforce for that. I really want to thank the leadership at WorkSource Montgomery for everything they've been able to do. They have lived up to our expectations, and I am really, really happy to say that. In public safety, in the police department, we're enhancing police recruitment and retention by strengthening the competitiveness of police compensation in relation to neighboring jurisdictions. We've sent over a budget with a negotiated labor agreement with the police union, and if the council passes this, it will restore Montgomery County to some competitiveness in the region. It expands police recruitment unit to attract top talent. It adds 3 civilian staff to support public information access act requests, all part of the legislation that came out of the state. It adds 2 sworn positions to support random review of police camera footage. It provides $90,000 to purchase non-lethal pepper ball guns. And these are guns that fire a pepper ball, and the pepper ball, when it hits the person's body, becomes rather disabling. And as it's an alternative to tasers, which if you fire and miss, you run out of options pretty quickly. The pepper ball guns often have multiple shots available. So my goal, and is to reduce the situations where officers run out of options that are non-lethal options. And we want to add this to the tools that officers have. They operate at a longer range than the taser. And as anybody's been through tear gas, that tear gas is pretty debilitating. In the Office of Human Resources, we provided one new position to support mental health assessments for police officers and sheriff's deputies, $800,000 in the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for nonprofit security grants for organizations at high risk of experiencing hate crimes. It's an increase over what we put in this year. And then the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation eliminates administrative fees for participants in court-related diversion programs, including the intervention program for substance abusers and alternative community service programs, which are programs where people actually had to pay a fee to participate in. And we got rid of that. And I'm really happy to see that in the budget. And we also are going to reactivate the bakery program that used to be in the correctional facility that provided job training for people, that people graduated of that program. They were able to get work. They were in demand. They got decent jobs. And in the budget cuts of the 2008, 2009 period, that program got killed. We're bringing it back. It's something we really missed. And they were a really good bakery. Their stuff was in demand. So it's good. It's good for the bakery, and it's going to be good for the people who are going to be working there. So I'm excited about that. And Fire and Rescue Service, you leveraged funds from the state's emergency service to a supplemental pay program to expand the mobile integrated health program to address the needs of frequent 911 callers. We had a paramedic chase car to serve Silver Spring. This is our continuing effort, not to have to build a fire station every time we have service issues, but to actually provide an appropriate piece of equipment in the right location that can address increased demands on our services. We had a career staffing at Sandy Spring Fire Station to bolster the volunteer staffing there. We had emergency medical services capacity officer to balance emergency department loads so we can make sure that we're sending ambulances to the hospital. They go to the right hospital. They don't go to a hospital that's full. We're adding an EMS duty officer to enhance medical supervision in the field at $1.65 million for our local volunteer fire department to enhance EMS activities and infrastructure. And we fund 2 new positions to expand mental health services for fire and rescue personnel. I haven't been able to talk like this about a budget since I've been here. This is actually fun. So if you sense that I'm vaguely excited about this, this is why I am. Montgomery County Public Libraries, $1.5 million additional funding so that the libraries can fill librarian positions that will support additional hours and improve customer service. We're not just going back to where we were, we're going beyond where we were to expand library services in this county. And we have $900,000 in additional funds to purchase ebooks to reduce wait times for residents seeking information. I got my first ebook. I'm still trying to find the time to listen to my ebook, but I would have equally difficult time trying to read, so it's interesting. In recreation, $2.3 million to open the South County Regional Aquatic Facility and Recreation Center, funding to support Independence Day celebrations in Germantown and Wheaton. I hope I'm not jinxing this, because the last time we talked about this was like in May of 2020, when everybody thought this was going to be over with, and we were saying, are we going to have 4th of July celebrations? And we were deciding whether we should budget for that, and obviously that didn't work, so hopefully no jinx on this. We actually get to do this year. We have $250,000 for programs, classes, and events to help older adults overcome the long-term impact of COVID, and additional funding for administrative support and new community liaison programs to enhance outreach and collaboration among community groups. For our community partners, we have a new Office of Grants Management. And we gave all of the nonprofits, whether they were in county government or otherwise, a 6% increase. 46 programs previously funded through the community grants non-departmental account budget were moved to the base budget of the departments. This is important. That means, for those of you who suffer through this, if you're on that list of people coming into the base budget, it's a whole different approach than treating you as a grant recipient. I look forward to that. We have $8.2 million for community grants in the community grants non-department account, $3 million for capital costs. We have 3 broad buckets of funding for grants in 23, $750,000 for nonprofit technical assistance and management support. This has been a big request from the nonprofits. You know, it's one thing to have a mission and a goal. It's another thing to understand how to run a business. This will help provide them support. $750,000 for children, youth, and family programs in underserved communities, and $500,000 for business district development grants. Toward a more effective and sustainable government, we have $2.3 million increase for the Board of Elections for general election support, $2.5 million recommended for the Public Election Fund. We have additional support for MC 311, 6 term positions, and the Public Information Office, 2 communication officers to enhance our public outreach. For those of you who don't know how to distinguish between the term position and otherwise, the term positions are limited until we see if they work. If they work and they do what we think, they'll become permanent. If we discover they're not what we thought they would be, then they will not become permanent. It's a way of hedging ourselves as we go into a new area. Significant enhancements to OHR to bolster recruitment, training, classification, and compensation. And my favorite thing, replacing the computerized applicant tracking system, which long overdue to disappear. I'm glad it's disappearing. I've threatened to pour water on it before to kill it. We have significant enhancements, like I said, in OHR. We have new capital asset management for DGS to track, monitor, and provide long-range planning for maintenance and replacement of capital assets. We don't have a centralized database right now for that. This has become the thing. Businesses are doing this. You're seeing this in other institutions. This will allow us to map and track all of our capital and all of our equipment and to determine when does it need to be serviced? When is it running out of its useful life? So we can plan replacements rather than this broke, we need to deal with it. So this will give us, I think, a more heads-up approach to doing this. And lastly, other enhancements. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission gets a budget increase of $10.6 million to $180.7 million. WSSC gets a 6.5% rate increase per the council's spending affordability guidelines. Payments to municipalities' budgets increased by $8.1 million. This was a big deal. We had a press conference about this on Monday. For decades, there has been a system of a system where the municipalities get reimbursed and they don't get reimbursed fully for the services they pay to replace county services. And it's always been, well, if we have to give them more money, that comes out of the county budget. I don't like it when the state holds our money back and says, yeah, this is supposed to be your money, but we're not giving it to you. And it was wrong for the county to hold back money that was meant for local jurisdictions. I came into office saying I would fix this problem, and we fixed this problem. We negotiate with reasonable people. We started 80% of the full payment, and we phase it in over 3 years to 100%. Everybody's happy. We had a really remarkably happy press conference the other day on this topic. Has never been a happy discussion. So it's good to have put this to sleep. We fully fund the request of the county council and the legislative branch departments, and we add funding to restore the Office of People's Counsel to the legislative branch where it used to be before the Great Recession hit. So that's this budget. It is, anybody who's sat through this in previous years knows this is not the kind of presentation we've been able to do for a very, very long time. I don't even think, my predecessor was able to do it because they were dealing with the Great Recession. So this is an opportunity, and it reflects changes in Montgomery County, growing tax base, growing, jobs, growing more, income from the residents of this county. It has put us on a track where we can do better. I'm really proud of my staff for putting this together. We were dealing with a mistake by the state government that kept us from putting this budget to bed until Sunday. The state had missed a whole bunch of money that was supposed to come to the county. We had seen a couple of disbursements in November and December that were lower than we'd anticipated. And we were surprised because the state was flush with money and oddly we weren't. And consider we provide most of the states or a huge portion of the state's income taxes, including, 90% of their capital gains tax? Some extraordinary amount of their capital gains tax. It didn't make sense to any of us that the state budget could be going up and our budget would not be going up. So they found the mistake and they corrected it. And it's like one of those great things, bank error in your favor. So we were able to make changes over the last week that put this budget in even better shape than it was before. It was going to be a good budget before. I think it's a great budget now. I'm really proud of the work everybody did. And I hope you all find this helpful. Thank you. So, questions?
One question.
So what might that question be?
Rebecca, if you have a question, you can ask it.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Pretty much.
Oh,
We
great,
hear
great.
you loud and clear.
Perfect. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been there in person. So I have two questions. The first one, Mr. Ulrich, you said the county's economic growth has helped to fund this new budget. Can you talk a little bit more about how Montgomery County has managed to, orchestrate an economic revival, over the past 2 years when, really there's been a global pandemic? How is that possible?
So, it wasn't like we weren't affected by the global pandemic, but one of the things, being in an area with already a base in life sciences, we saw opportunities. And so, I've been promoting life sciences and trying to do more to deal with a couple of things. One, deal with the way we permit things in Montgomery County so that businesses didn't become our adversaries. We could actually use them as advocates for Montgomery County. And so when companies came to us and said, I need to get this building built, I need to get it built in X amount of time, can you do it? And they were advised by people sometimes who said the county could never do that. We found ways to do it. And as people got successful, they were able to, we could actually refer somebody who was interested in coming here to somebody who had an experience and say, we're different now. And we're conscious that, and I knew this when I came in here, that we were failing on a number of fronts, and our reputation was really one of the things that held Montgomery County down. For all the assets we have, if people don't think you can handle it reasonably and quickly, that's a problem. So we dealt with that. I know the council's added some more enhancements. We made some decisions on how we permit certain activities in the life sciences field. So we've been able to, I think, consistently show a willingness to adapt how we work in a way that was different than before. And I think that has helped us reputationally. I've tried to be an ambassador. I've gone out and met people who were thinking about bringing projects. The latest, we landed Horizon Therapeutics. I was asked to come down to a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. And I came down and talked about Montgomery County. Why Montgomery County? We were in competition with one other jurisdiction. And we wanted to make sure they knew that we were serious about this and we wanted them to be here. You cannot grow a vibrant economy to support the kind of services that Montgomery County has if you're not going to encourage businesses to come here, because they bring jobs and they pay taxes. And, our ability to be able to do that, I think, has made a difference.
So just to clarify, so when you say that the tax revenue has performed better than expected, it's because of growth in the life sciences industry? Is that what you're saying?
It's not just growth, it's growth in value of property, because as people get more interested in things, the prices go up. You're seeing that in housing. We have, really strong recordation tax from the transfer of property, but the transfer of property has been both residential and commercial. I think the higher prices reflect our higher desirability. You know, usually when a place becomes less desirable, the prices travel in the opposite direction. The fact that we're seeing better prices in commercial and residential is a positive sign that people find this is a desirable place to be. And that's one of the things, the optics we've been trying to correct here.
The second question, on the ride-on service fares, is the goal to scale it back up to what it was pre-pandemic eventually, or to keep it at $1? And relatedly, you know, why increase it now to $1 after keeping it free for 2 years?
Because we're ramping the service back up to full service. If I don't have that dollar, if I take that dollar out of the budget, then I'm going to have to make how many millions of dollars, Chris? So we'd have to make $10 million in cuts to the budget, or find another $10 million to provide the support for the ride-on system that would include. My preference would be frankly, to go to a tiered system. And we've had some discussions about ways to do this simply, where truly low-income people don't have to pay a fare, but it doesn't make sense. There are lots of government workers who ride on passes that make transportation free, or get supplements from their employer to make transportation free. It doesn't make sense to walk away from that, particularly when you consider that a ride-on ride is cheaper than Metro. If you're driving, you don't pay the gas and you don't pay the parking. It is the least expensive way to get around. So I'm happy to entertain ways to make sure that we address the lowest income folks in the community, the people with the most scarcity of resources, but we don't have to do that for everybody. And this is $10 million that we'd have to take out of something else. Like I said, this budget doesn't include any tax increases. So everything you start taking away, you add it back in one place, you're going to take it out of something else. I think we funded a lot of really great things in this budget. I would hate to think of what I'd want to walk away from. So I'd rather deal with the economic problem in a surgical way rather than with a blunt instrument.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Elrich.